Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're getting into some really powerful stories from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, you probably know them. The lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son.
Yeah, the prodigal son story especially, they're super familiar, but looking at them through the culture of the time, it just opens up so much more.
Exactly. That's what we want to do today. Go beyond maybe the Sunday school version and really unpack the layers, especially thinking about the Middle Eastern context when Jesus first told them. Get ready for some aha moments, hopefully, around loss, searching, and this, really radical idea of forgiveness.
And we've got some great insights to share, drawing on perspectives from people who've spent, decades immersed in that world studying these texts. It brings a whole different angle.
Okay, so first things first. Why did Jesus tell these stories? It wasn't just out of the blue, was it?
No, not at all. It was a direct response. The religious leaders, the Pharisees and scribes, were complaining, murmuring,
Murmuring about what?
about Jesus hanging out with and even eating with
Uh-huh.
people they look down on, tax collectors and sinners. That's the quote.
Right. And that word murmuring, it's interesting. It apparently echoes how the Israelites complained against Moses in the desert.
Yeah, there's that resonance. So you've got this tension,
Hmm.
the establishment, the found, maybe, criticizing Jesus for reaching out to the lost. And Jesus is right there, in the middle of it. That's the setup,
And it's brilliant how the three stories work together. You see this progression, don't you?
definitely. Starts with an animal, then an object, then people. Real human dialogue in the last one.
Like it's zooming in on relationships, on what it means to turn back.
Precisely, a deepening focus.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the first one, the lost sheep.
Right. The shepherd leaves 99 sheep to find one. That alone feels dramatic.
It really is. I mean, 100 sheep. That's significant wealth, a big responsibility, leaving the 99 in the wilderness, the open country, to find just one.
And the shepherd himself, that choice of character is interesting too, isn't it?
Very. Because shepherds, well, from the perspective of some religious elites, like the Pharisees, who probably hired shepherds, they could be seen as unclean or maybe just people of the land, not quite observant enough.
So Jesus using a shepherd as the hero here is kind of pushing back against that view.
Absolutely. He's elevating the common person, the one doing the searching. And there's that connection people make to Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd.
Ah, right. So it's like Jesus is saying, I am that shepherd from the psalm, actively seeking the lost.
That's a powerful way to read it, yeah.
Yeah.
He's embodying that divine care.
And the language Jesus uses, he says, if he has lost one of them, he puts the responsibility on the shepherd.
Which is subtle but important. Apparently, the more common way to phrase it back then might have been more passive, like the sheep went missing from me, avoiding direct blame.
So by saying if he lost it, Jesus is maybe subtly pointing a finger at the religion leaders, like you're the shepherds and you've let some sheep get lost.
It certainly reads that way. It adds another layer to his response to their criticism. And think about the search itself. Finding one sheep in that kind of rugged terrain.
Not easy. Could take ages, right? A whole day, maybe more.
Exactly. It underscores how valuable that one lost sheep is. It's worth the effort, the cost.
And it wasn't just the shepherd's problem, was it? In a village, everyone cared if livestock went missing.
Oh, definitely. Community life was tightly knit. So when he finds it, the joy isn't private. He calls his friends, his neighbors, the community celebrates.
Some scholars even suggest those friends could be a nod to the Pharisees' own groups, their kaburim, like Jesus is saying you should be celebrating too.
It's plausible. And then there's the definition of repentance that seems to emerge here.
How so?
Well, the focus isn't on the sheep doing anything heroic to get back. It's passive. Repentance here looks like simply the acceptance of being found.
The sheep is found, it's brought back, it accepts being rescued.
Yeah. It shifts the focus onto the finder, the shepherd.
But it leaves that question hanging. Why leave the 99 in the wilderness? Seems a bit vulnerable for them.
It does. And that little bit of unresolved tension, it kind of paves the way for the next parable, the lost coin. It addresses maybe a different aspect.
Okay, so let's move to the lost coin, straight after the sheep.
Right. And if Jesus is the good shepherd, maybe he's also implicitly the good woman searching diligently here. It makes the message universal, reaching men and women in the audience.
That's a neat observation. So the coin, what's the deal losing a coin.
Well, for a peasant woman especially, this wasn't just pocket change. Coins, often silver, might have been her dowry, or savings, maybe worn as jewelry, sewn onto a headpiece.
So losing one could be a serious financial hit, a big chunk of the family's security.
Potentially, yes. It represents real value, maybe food for the family, and where she loses it is key too.
Inside the house.
Exactly, in the house, which is different from the wilderness. It suggests these lost sinners Jesus is welcoming. They're not strangers from far away. They're right here, within the community, within the house of Israel.
They just need to be diligently searched for, sweeping the house, lighting a lamp.
Right. And notice her phrasing when she finds it. Unlike the shepherd's more passive, "My sheep which was lost," she says.
I have found the coin which I had lost. She takes ownership.
Yes. There's a clearer sense of personal responsibility, maybe even a hint of remorse for not keeping it safe. It adds a slightly different nuance than the sheep parable.
And again, the celebration. She calls her friends and neighbors.
Just like the shepherd.
Yeah.
Though culturally it might have been, a women's gathering for her, while the shepherd had one with the men, reflecting the social norms.
But the core message is that shared joy in finding what was lost.
And this time, Jesus makes the heavenly connection explicit. There is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Finding the coin on earth mirrors the joy in heaven.
Okay, so that sets us up for the big one. The third parable, the lost son, or the prodigal son.
Yeah, this one dives deep into family, relationships, forgiveness. It's incredibly rich. Let's start with the younger son's request.
Asking for his inheritance while his dad's still alive. I mean, even today that sounds bad, but back then...
It was unbelievably offensive.
Yeah.
Deeply dishonoring. It was basically saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead so I could have my stuff." It wasn't just breaking a rule, it shattered the core relationship.
And there's something about the wording, too. He asks for his share of the property, ousia, not specifically inheritance, kleronomia.
Right. And the thinking is, inheritance came with responsibilities leading the family, caring for others. By asking for the ousia, the property, the substance, he just wants the cash, the assets, without any of the strings attached. Privilege without responsibility.
He just wants out. And by taking his share and leaving...
He's cutting himself off. Completely. From his family, his village, his roots. That was everything back then. Your identity, your security, your social safety net. It's total self-exile.
And the father's reaction, he actually divides the property.
Between both sons, the text says, which is interesting. It shows the father still in charge, but it also maybe sows the seeds for the older brother's resentment later on. He got his share too, technically.
Then the younger son heads off to a far country. That phrase sounds significant.
It is. The Greek word epidemizin literally means he traveled away from his own people. It stresses the break. And the fact that there are pigs there strongly implies it's Gentile territory.
The ultimate foreign land for a Jew, and there he squandered his property.
Yeah, the word discorposin means scattered, dissipated, like losing a battle, aimless dispersal. The text doesn't actually list specific sins, just spendthrift, living sodos. Aristotle apparently defined that simply as wasting your substance.
Then things get really bad. Famine hit them.
And famines then were horrific. He's destitute, utterly broke, and he ends up
feeding pigs, the absolute lowest point imaginable for a Jewish person, unclean animals.
Yeah. The verb used, kalal, means he joined himself or clung to this pig farmer out of sheer desperation.
So desperate he wants to eat the pig's food, those carob pods.
Karasian, yeah. It shows just how hungry, how degraded he feels. Even the pigs seem better off.
Then it says he came to himself. Is this repentance?
Well, it's definitely a moment of realization. He sees how bad things are. But his plan, it sounds a bit calculated, doesn't it?
The rehearsed speech. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you.
I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. Some compare it to Pharaoh's confession to Moses, maybe not entirely sincere at first. More about self-preservation. Notice he focuses on sinning against heaven and his father, maybe thinking about the offense, the lost money, rather than the broken relationship itself.
But the father's response just blows that whole plan out of the water.
Completely shatters it. The father sees him coming from a long way off, feels compassion, and runs.
Which, for an elder, a patriarch was just not done right.
Yeah.
Hiking up his robes to run, undignified.
Totally. He takes the shame upon himself. He runs, embraces him, and kisses him repeatedly. The Greek katephalason suggests intense affection, forgiveness. It's this picture of God's love rushing to meet the sinner.
And the son, faced with that,
He's stunned. He starts his speech, "Father, I have sinned." But he doesn't finish it. He leaves out the part about "treat me as a hired servant."
He just says, I am no longer worthy to be called your son.
Exactly. It's no longer a manipulation tactic. It's genuine surrender. He accepts his unworthiness, and in doing so, he fulfills that definition we saw earlier. Repentance as the acceptance of being found.
Wow. And the father immediately restores him. The robe, the ring, the
The
shoes.
best robe, probably the father's own.
Hmm.
The signet ring, symbol of authority, trust, belonging. And shoes, sons wore shoes. Slaves often didn't. It's a full public restoration. Back in the family, back in the community.
The story isn't over. There's the older brother.
Ah, yes. His reaction shows a whole different kind of lostness. He's been physically present, but maybe lost emotionally, lost in resentment, duty without love.
He won't even go into the party. He's angry.
Furious. And notice when he complains to his father, he doesn't even call him father. Huge sign of disrespect. He paints himself as a slave. "These many years I have served you."
Yeah, he sees it as servitude and reward, not relationship and love. And he makes accusations against his brother, doesn't he? Stuff the parable doesn't actually say happened.
Right, about squandering the money with prostitutes. He's bitter, exaggerating, maybe fabricating. He's lost in his own self-righteousness.
And the father, he goes out again.
He does. He goes out to plead with the older son. The word is parakaleo, to come alongside, entreat. It contrasts with how the older son just summoned proskaleo, a servant earlier, treating him as an inferior. The father comes alongside his angry son.
Trying to bridge that gap, too. And his final words.
So gentle. He calls him tenon, my dear son, my child. He doesn't argue about the inheritance. He already said, all that is mine is yours. He focuses on the joy. This brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. It's about restoration, not accounting.
Wow. Okay, so pulling it all together as we wrap up this deep dive. What's the big picture from these three?
I mean, together they give this incredibly powerful picture of God's love. It's relentless, it searches, it rejoices over one person being found, and the cultural details just make it hit harder. The shepherd's dedication, the woman's diligence, and especially the father's, well, scandalous grace.
Scandalous is a good word for it. And it shows different ways to be lost, too. Not just the obvious running away, but also staying home but being lost in bitterness, like the older son.
Exactly. Both sons needed reconciliation in different ways.
So listening to this, you've hopefully seen these familiar stories with fresh eyes through that ancient cultural lens, maybe some surprises in there.
And maybe a question to ponder. Which of these lost figures, if any, do you resonate with? The sheep needing rescue, the coin needing finding, the younger son needing radical forgiveness, or even the older son needing release from resentment?
Yeah. And what does it mean for you to accept being found by a love like that? A love that breaks all the rules and runs to meet you? How does understanding the original setting change how you think about grace, about turning back?
These aren't just neat little morality tales. They're profound insights into God's character, his desire to find and restore.
Absolutely. Definitely worth digging into that cultural background more if you get the chance. It really does unlock so much. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.